Alright, hi everyone. Some of you wanted more of a visual explanation of what you were supposed to be doing for your first lab in your human biology lab manual. So due at the end of this week, we'll have exercise number 1, learning about the natural world. Normally you would do a lab like this in a laboratory, but with an online class, we'll improvise a bit and you'll have to be doing this at home. So start off reading the introduction here. Look at the objectives. Next, it's probably a good idea to actually read through the whole lab. Go through here, on to the next page, on to pages 4 and 5 and 6. And ideally, after you read a whole lab, you should be able to answer the pre-lab questions, numbers 1 through 10 on page 7. Now let's go back to the beginning, starting with our procedure. For our materials, I gave you a list of some things that you would need. Improvising a little bit, there's the blindfold, that's pretty easy to get. Small liquid crystal thermometer, that's kind of one of the old style ones. And instead of some plastic beakers, you wouldn't probably have those in your home, you could use a coffee cup with some sort of thing like some socks or handkerchiefs shoved inside, and the reason behind that is you're going to use that to deaden some sound. Continue reading with your procedure here on page 1. Continue reading, especially on page 2, a very important page here. You'll learn what a question, hypothesis, prediction, experiment, and observations, or why they're necessary for scientific method, the difference between the experimental, or sometimes what I call treatment group, the control group, and independent, dependent, and controlled variables are. Be sure to read those. Those are background. Also, never forget to take a look at and study diagrams. Those are there for a reason. Number 3, this is where we actually get to do something. This is actually the procedures that you're doing. And it goes along with this table on this page. So right here, number 3AI, talks about these observations here. And after making an observation in science, very commonly then you come up with a question. So they've done that for you. Then a hypothesis and a prediction, and they've done that for you here too. And you are actually supposed to try testing this question here. Next. Keep following the procedure here. It's a picture of what you're looking at on page 3, and keep following the procedure here. Next, in number 3B, you're going to do it all again. And they've actually already filled it in for you. For 3B, the observation, the people have 2 ears. They've made the question, the hypothesis and prediction, and this is where that beaker or cup that's stuffed with some sort of cloth to deaden sound will come in handy. So complete that procedure right here. You're actually supposed to test this as well, if possible. People can hold their breath for only a short period, so what factor forces a person to take a breath is the question. and a hypothesis and prediction are already written for you. And in fact, as you're doing these tests, you should be filling in and collecting data. So here's the one right here, the average time of breath holding and after rest and after exercise. So actually use this right here to make a graph of your data that you're collecting as you're testing that question. Now I'll go backwards a little bit in table 1.1 here with the ear question. There's actually a graph for you to fill in here. And then I imagine with number 1 about the veins containing blood under the skin, the swellings, you can write in your information here. And here's where your thermometer will come in handy. Again, this is all written out for you. They've already done the observation, the question, hypothesis, and prediction. And you can go about testing it. That's what we're doing here in letter D. And there's even a graph. Help keep your data. Alright, now that you've had a chance to test 4 questions, you've had some experience, now it's time to come up with your own. So that's why this area of the table is left blank for you. You'll come up with your own observation, ask a question about it, complete a hypothesis and a prediction. You'll notice one important part about scientific method is deductive thinking. When you see an if-then statement, let's see if I've got one here, if the hypothesis is correct, then, that's deductive thinking. So on page 4, this is where you can write up your own question, your own hypothesis and prediction, and be able to test it. Now you're going to have to try to do something that you have the resources at home to do. So in my statement in the discussion area of D2L the other day, I had an idea. You can use it if you like, if not, that's okay. My idea was about the observation that I noticed that the iris of people's eyes tend to get bigger and smaller, or dilate and constrict, which makes the pupil larger and smaller at times. So that's my observation, and I tried to make it something about the human body since this is human biology. Then I asked a question, will pupils grow large or shrink in size due to sensitivity to light? My hypothesis, if pupils are sensitive to light, then they'll shrink in the presence of light and grow larger in the absence of light. And this is where I can be writing this information down right here. And my prediction, if my hypothesis is correct, then the subject's pupils will grow large in the dark and shrink in bright light. So that would mean I would have to find someone to probably help me out with that, where I can observe their pupils. If you can find more than one person, that would be even better. And I would do my test. This area here on the bottom on page 4 is an area that you could use as a data table. If it isn't really set up to what you're doing, you can make your own data table. And as you do your test here, you do not have to do this right here on page 4. Number 4 with the statistics, don't worry about this little area here. I told you in your directions you can skip that. Then you can read a little bit more about taking things a little bit further. After things pass the hypothesis stage, we have theories and principles and maybe even someday laws, scientific laws. And so the real general idea in the first part of your lab is to get you some practice into making observations and writing questions, hypotheses, and predictions, or in other words, the scientific method. When finished with that, on page 6, you can practice even a little bit more by getting your feet wet a little bit and looking up some scientific articles. I left you a link to the Riverland Library on D2L. There's the Science magazine is good, Scientific American. There's a whole load of research journals out there that you can take a look at and try to find something that interests you and read it and fill in the information about it. See if you can pick out some of those important things that we talked about in the lab here a little bit earlier in the pages. You should have already done the pre-lab questions. And last but not least, when you're all finished, you should go to page 8 and complete the post-lab questions. When it's all said and done, the preferred method would be for you to tear this out, or actually you could leave it in the book for this, scan it and upload it to the Chapter 1 Dropbox. If you can't do that, you can always tear it out and mail it in to me per the directions on D2L. However, I always say it's a better idea if you were to mail it. Please make a copy of it if you can, so that should it get lost in the mail, you'll still have a copy to prove that you did it.